On YouTube, Hannah has asked such a good question that we're going to take 3 videos to answer it. She writes, how do we know that we can really trust God? I've been a Christian for as long as I can remember, but sometimes I still question God and if He's real or not. Could you help? Of course we can. We're going to answer that question in 3 videos. First asking, is God real? Then asking, can we trust God? And then asking, what do we do with our doubts? So here goes with the first question, is God real? First thing we need to do is to understand the kind of God we're talking about. This question is not like the question, is the Loch Ness Monster real?
I see it! I see the monster! No!
The Loch Ness Monster is one creature within the world. We're talking about the existence of a creator of the world, not just a super being, but the source of being. Big difference.
From a Christian point of view, asking whether God is real is a bit like Juliet asking whether Shakespeare is real. She can ask, wherefore art thou Romeo? But she can't ask, wherefore art thou Shakespeare? Where is Shakespeare? For Juliet, Shakespeare is everywhere. Wherever she looks, she's seeing something of the author. Everything she sees has been crafted by his hand. Even the way she looks at things is shaped by the author.
In Romans 1, it says, what can be known about God is plain to us, because God has shown it to us. For even His invisible attributes, namely His eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so that we are without excuse. This isn't just saying that there's a lot of evidence out there and if we're clever we can piece it together. It's far more basic than that. God's existence presses into us in every aspect of life. In Him we live and move and have our being. According to the Bible, we have to work hard to suppress His reality. His reality is the most basic fact of existence. But given that we do suppress the truth of His reality, how do we recapture a sense of it?
Imagine that, as we're talking together, masked gunmen burst through the door with AK-47s in hand. They drag us outside and throw us into unmarked vans, and then they drug us so that we forget everything about the world and who we are. Cheery thought, I know. When we wake up, we find ourselves in a large empty room with no windows or doors. And eventually, after some time has passed, we begin to question where we are. What's the nature of the room? Is there anything beyond it?
One guy gets up with an idea about the meaning of the room. Let's call him Hopeful Harry. He's an optimistic type.
Does someone need a hug?
He says, guys, I've got a feeling in my bones. It's just gonna be okay. I just feel like somebody up there likes us. Now, in life, there are hopeful Harrys. They don't have any evidence, but they feel that there's something more to life. Are you a hopeful Harry?
Then scientific Sally gets involved. She loves science.
Yes, science!
She's able to measure the room and perform all sorts of tests and experiments on it. She tells us that the room seems to be perfectly ordered and balanced to sustain our lives here in it. It's designed, so there's got to be a designer. There are scientific Sallys in our world too. They look at our universe and say that it's so finely tuned that it must have been designed. For instance, if the universe expanded from the Big Bang slightly faster, we'd all fling out into heat death. If it was slightly slower, we'd collapse back in a big crunch. But we're balanced on a razor's edge. Everything seems to be just right. So when we use our best science, this world seems to be designed. So there must be a designer. That's what Sally thinks. Maybe you think the same.
Next comes skeptical Stephen. He listens to the others and he says, Harry, I like you, you're sweet. Sally, those numbers are really interesting, but I don't know what to do with them. Maybe the room just had to be like this. I don't know. What do I compare the room to? This is all we've got. Let's just shut up about what's outside the room and let's try to make the room as good as we can make it. That's what skeptical Stephens say in the world. They say this world is all we've got. Let's get on with life inside this world. Are you like Stephen? Well, we still haven't described the Christian position yet. Here is what Christians say.
Imagine that as this conversation was going on, a piece of plaster falls from the ceiling and a hole begins to appear. And then a rope drops through the hole and a man drops down into the room. And he says, I've come from the outside, I'm here to rescue you. Now that's going to change the conversation in the room. If we want to know what's beyond the room or why the room exists, then we're going to want to listen to the one person who's come in from the outside. And that's what Jesus does. He comes in from the outside and shows us what is beyond. When praying to his Father, he said, you loved me before the creation of the world. Jesus can tell us about the nature of the world because he was there before the world even existed. And not only that, he made the world. John tells us, through him all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. We may not be sure God is there. Maybe we're a hopeful Harry or a scientific Sally or even a skeptical Stephen. But surely if God just came down, showed himself and put in an appearance, then we could just put this question to bed. As Joan Osborne once asked,
what if God was one of us?
Well, he was. And that's how we can be sure he's real.
Jesus is the guy in the middle of the room saying, "Here I am the God that everyone else just talks about. Come to me." If Jesus is telling the truth, then there is a stunning possibility. If Jesus really is who he says he is, then God is real. And not just any God, here's a God who loves before the foundation of the world. That God is real. This means that there is a personal foundation for the universe. Therefore, Jesus makes sense of everything else we experience. Why is love and laughter and lemon drizzle cake so wonderful? I mean, if we're all just cogs in an impersonal machine, that doesn't make sense. But if Jesus is real, then it makes all the sense in the world. Why is goodness, truth, and beauty ultimate if we're all just matter in motion? And why is Jesus the most influential person in history if he's just a deluded egotist?
Do you have doubts? Is God real? Can I trust him? Ask yourself, is Jesus trustworthy? If he is, then you have a God you can know, and even better, a God who is worth knowing.